today? I am doing excellent. Hope you're all doing well. Another week has come and gone. Can't believe it's already the weekend. I am filming here on a Friday right after work, so I'm still in my work clothes. I came home and I wanted to go ahead and get the filming done right away. I have a lot going on this weekend, so I thought I would go ahead and film right away, and then I could get the video edited and ready to go for tomorrow morning. So here we are, stitching away. I am working on my Hedgehog SAL. So hashtag Hedgehog SAL if you're joining in on Instagram with Nicole Buckeye Stitcher and I. We are doing this because we both had the same pattern for the Riolis kit, but of course if you don't have that kit but you have a pattern that has a hedgehog in it, go ahead and stitch any pattern that has a hedgehog in it. This is just the pattern that I have that has a hedgehog. So this is where is it at? The pattern that I am working on is the Riolis. Hedgehog and mushrooms is what I call it. I'm sure there's another name for it. I got this at Hobby Lobby on clearance. Right now I'm working right here in this section here on the leaves and berries. We might get to a little bit of the red on the berries. We'll see how far we get to today. So it has been a couple weeks since I filmed a Stitch With Me video. Last week I was super busy stitching up some models for the patterns that I released last week. So I was unable to film a video. And so I went ahead and just decided not to film a Stitch With Me last week. But here I am this week going to go ahead and film a Stitch With Me. And of course I've been working on my Hedgehog SAL, my hedgehog pattern. I actually, the last 2 nights, have not done any stitching. I've been knitting. So 1, 2, 3. I really have been into the knitting lately and been working on my sweater and my socks. So the last couple nights, I really have not had the motivation to do any stitching. So I've decided to just go ahead and knit. And this weekend, I do have some stitching I have to do for the business and hopefully some personal stitching. And then we'll go ahead and do, of course, I'm sure I will throw in some some knitting throughout the weekend too. So but really enjoying this hedgehog's pattern that I'm working on. I do like these Riolis kits that I have. I have a number of the animal ones. I am using all the materials that are supplied in the kit. So it's the wools, the acrylic wools that are supplied, as well as the 14 count Aida. I do not typically have a problem with those materials. It does take a while to get used to stitching with the wools just because they do fray quite quickly, and it does take a while to get used to, but once you do, I really don't think they're any different than stitching with anything else. It just does take a little bit to get used to the different type of floss. But I really do like the way that this is stitching up. I will say this is even though it's a smaller piece than the owl that I stitched in the spring, I think it's going to be a little bit slower to stitch just because of the amount of blended threads that are in this one. There are a lot more blended threads in this than there were in the owl piece. But that's fine because I think that gives a great dimension and detail. So, and I really like that. Right now, as you can see, maybe you can't see, so I'm going to explain. I am doing 1/1 because this pattern calls for variations between 1/1 and 2/1 on this 14 count. And again, that just gives it a lot more detail and definition in the design for the coloring. So everything that you see other than this really light green that I'm working on right here, I was able to do in one night of stitching, which would have been actually Tuesday night. I was not able to start this the day that I should have on the first day of the Hedgehog SAL. Where am I at? So the SAL actually started on, the stitch along started on October 1st, Monday, but if you are joining in, you can join in anytime. You do not have to start right away with us. This is going to be an ongoing project because this is not a race for any of us who are stitching the hedgehogs. 1, 2, 3. This is going to be a nice relaxing SAL. So definitely if you decide to join in later and it takes a little bit to get your materials, go ahead and join in. We are following along on Instagram and participating mainly on Instagram, but definitely if you have a floss tube or you are on YouTube, go ahead and throw it on there, or of course in any of the Facebook groups as well. So I had a really good question this week on my update video, and I wanted to go ahead and discuss that today in today's video. I did respond and answer the question directly on the comment of my video, but I thought it would be a really good question to answer here during a stitch with me because it was a question that I don't really ever think about, but I think many people might just because they see how much crafting I do on a regular basis. So the question was, and I'm sorry I didn't look it up as to who asked the question prior to starting the video, was do you ever get overwhelmed with how much crafting or stitching you do on a regular basis? And I thought that was a very interesting question because I think many people might. However, I don't. I think, and my response to that was I don't get overwhelmed with the amount of stitching or crafting I do because it's just a natural thing for me to sit down and something's not right. 1, 2, 3. Ah. Mm-mm. Well, now we get to frog a little bit, so you get to see me frog while I chat. What am I doing? because I messed up. Okay, so the question was about, do you ever get overwhelmed with all of your crafting? And I don't. And I think the reason is because crafting is my outlet for my I I am one of those people that can't sit still whenever I'm watching TV or I'm at home. I need to have something to do. And so for me, when I'm at home, I naturally tend to want to craft, meaning stitch or knit. Because when I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, I want to keep my hands busy. So I naturally have all of my stuff here on the couch ready for me to just pick it up and go. Very rarely is there a time where I don't want to be doing those things when I'm at home watching TV. It's just it's just unnatural for me not to want to do that. So I would either have to have an extremely bad migraine, and in that case I would probably be in bed, or I would not be feeling well, either with being sick or something like that, or I would be, very anxious or something and just not have a general mood of non-craftiness, which, does occasionally happen, but very, very rarely. So for me, it's taken me a very long time to get to this answer, but for me, what tends to happen is, why can't I get this to come up? There we go. I get overwhelmed when I don't have something to do, or when I'm starting something new. For example, if I have to start something new, like a new project, I often get overwhelmed with where to begin. And meaning, like, I think it's the anxiety of making sure that I'm starting in the right place, that I have enough margins for framing or however I want to finish. That just that, that I'm going to be doing everything in the right way so that I don't have any problems down the road. That to me is much more overwhelming than just sitting down and crafting. I also feel very overwhelmed if I don't have crafting, meaning if I go to the movies and I have to sit still for 2 hours and watch a movie at the movie theater and I don't have something to do with my hands, I get very I'm very distracted. I can't focus very well, and I have a hard time. One, two, one, two. I have a very hard time paying attention to the movie because I'm distracted by the fact that I don't have something to do with my hands. Because I'm so used to doing that on a regular basis at home. So for me, I get overwhelmed by not having crafting than by doing the crafting. Almost to the point where it's second nature for me, I think is what it is. It's routine. And I like the routine. I like to be able to come home, sit down, and stitch. And I think many of us are like that. If we have that opportunity, that we're going to want to participate in doing something like that because it helps us to unwind. And I'm speaking for the masses, but I'm sure everyone has their own opinions and ideas. But uh, I do think that it's for me it's a relaxing, enjoyable thing for me to sit down every day and do some sort of crafting. So I struggle, like I was saying, with not having my materials. If I go to a friend's house and we watch TV, I take my knitting with me so that I have something to do with my hands. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I learned how to knit was so that I could take my stuff with me to friend's house to to keep me occupied when we watch TV so that I don't have to take my stitching because then I could sit in the dark or near dark and not have to have the lights on and not have to have, a full-blown alt light to light my work. Okay, now we are back to where I need to be. 1, 2, 3. Yes. So I hope I explained that in a way that makes sense. And I also think for me, designing, I can often get overwhelmed with designing. And I think that's for me, it's because I have so many ideas in my head that I want to do, and I get overwhelmed with how to eat, where to even start, or where to even be, how to get my thoughts out of my head and onto the graph. So oftentimes I'll sit here and I'll think and I'll think and I'll think about my designs, but I'll struggle with how I want, and I'll procrastinate as far as getting it designed up because I just don't know where to begin. 2, where am I at? Yep. So that is a lot of my thoughts on that question of overwhelming sensation with stitching. I really, really enjoy stitching. Obviously, I wouldn't have a channel if I didn't. It's a huge part of my life. I had to laugh. I was talking to my boss today at work, and I was talking about going to Minnesota here in a couple weeks, and she's like, "Oh, why are you?" She had forgotten why I was going there, and then before I could even say why, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I know," and almost like brushing it off, like uh, she knew exactly where I was going because even my coworkers know that if I'm not at work, they know exactly what I'm going to be doing because that's basically everything else I do outside of work is cross stitch. It's that big of a part of my life anymore, as I think it is for many of us on that are on floss tube and that watch floss tube. 1, 2, 3, 4. So with these designs, I typically try to do as much of one color in an area as I can. Because it's 14 count Ada, I don't have a problem with counting and I do carry my floss as much as a decent amount because this is basically a full coverage design. I don't have a problem with carrying my floss because it's going to be covered underneath and it's not going to show through on top. I I also, because 14 count area is very easy to count, I don't have a problem with doing cross country. So I will, just like I am doing here, I do try to at least do a section for each color that I'm working on, like a section of the pattern, as much as I possibly can before I switch to a different color. It all depends upon my mood and what I'm feeling like doing that day. I think I might, no, am I going to make it? My floss is getting quite short here. I think I'm going to do this one more and then I will switch out my floss. Okay. So this kit has really nice floss organization system. So it's all nice and organized. I don't have to, the other design, the owl that I did earlier in the year, I had to bobbinate everything because it came on hanks and it was such a pain to bobbinate this wool. So this one is very nice and convenient to quickly switch strands of floss. Okay. So if you are following my videos on a regular basis, you would have seen that I did release 2 patterns in the last week. I released Stories of the North Part 2, which is the pattern with the squirrel and the groundhog. And I also released 1492, which is a commemorative design for Christopher Columbus. So those patterns are available in my Etsy store. for both a digital download as well as a printed pattern. You can find those patterns available now. If you are interested in printed patterns, I do have the coupon code going until the end of the year that if you buy 2 or more patterns and you use the coupon code buy 2 ship free, you can get free shipping on any of the printed patterns as long as you buy 2 or more. And again, that's going until the end of the year. So just enter the coupon code at checkout and you can get free shipping. I currently have a finisher finishing those Stories of the North designs into flat folds for me. I think they'll look very nice as a flat fold, and I will be getting those back here probably mid to end of October, and then I will be able to release part 3 probably the beginning of November. So I hope you are all enjoying that series. I am loving all of your work on that as I follow along on Instagram. I am receiving instant messages with communications about those designs and enjoying hearing about your appreciation for the designs and looking forward to seeing all the stitched up pieces. I really enjoy seeing everyone's creativity whenever I release a pattern. And I know I've said this many times before, and I just want to reiterate how I speak only for myself as a designer. I put out patterns because that's what I see in my head. And when I see a pattern, it's a framework for what I think a pattern should be. However, I always think there is always room for interpretation and creativity to improve for your own enjoyment. And so if you have a way that you think you might want to improve upon it or change it up to make it match your style, then I am all for your supporting your creativity. And I make sure to notate that on the pattern. So please, you have my permission as a designer to explore that creativity and use my design as a catalyst for that creativity, and to use the pattern for an opportunity to dive into the world of changing the flosses, changing the fabrics. Uh, and so I look forward to seeing those creative moments on social media. So I just wanted to mention that, and I hope to see many more. And a lot of times I will throw in different elements that I think might be more challenging for individuals, or might throw some individuals into a little bit beyond their comfort zone, just because I think it's a way for all of us to learn and to grow as artists in our craft. So again, that's me as a teacher coming out, and I hope to just share those opportunities with everybody, and it's helping me as a designer grow, and I hope to help everyone else grow as cross-stitch artists. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this little section of leaf motif, and then I think that is going to be as far as I'm going to carry this thread, and we're going to call it quits for today. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend full of crafting and creativity, and I will see you next time on the next episode. And as always, don't forget to always be creative.